Stringybark is a distinctive range of screen-printed clothing with a strong environmental theme. The owners of the company, Sandy Ryan and her partner James, work from an old army drill hall at Kurri Kurri near Newcastle in New South Wales. From here, their products are distributed to specialist retailers around the country. What's become a successful business began in the early 1990s.
I guess it came from my feeling that the environment was important, and I wanted to make some of fun but, you know, firm statement about putting the environment first and putting all of those things in front of people. So doing big, bold, splashy designs that couldn't be ignored, and making a sort of in-your-face statement.
Making that idea a reality, designing and producing clothing that combines a flair for the visual arts with a passion for the environment, has involved James and Sandy in a continuing process of adapting the right designs to the right technology.
I guess we're silk screening for a couple of reasons. It is the best method for putting graphic designs onto fabric. The other methods that are available, such as say knitting or embroidery, really aren't that suited to doing the type of designs that we're doing with the same clarity of finish and the same overall coverage. We started doing it on the kitchen table and on the floor, and so you can basically work at home on a limited scale, but you can use your bathroom for a dark room to develop screens. You can put some newspaper down on the floor and put some fabric or a t-shirt on it and a screen over that and print something. It's all very accessible, and of course the more that you do, you can increase the technology to help you screen print, but it's still basically the same. You're still having a screen that sits on top of the fabric and you have ink in it and a squeegee presses it through.
Stringybark's environmental theme lies behind the decision to print multiple designs all over the fabric and then make up the garments, rather than print directly onto items of clothing.
Print all over fabric is one of our trademarks. It's something that we're known for. The reason for it is, I think the environment surrounds us and we're part of that. So there's a little bit of symbolism there, if you like, that instead of just taking something that we want and popping it on the front of a shirt, we're actually drawing an analogy and saying it encompasses us and we're part of it.
The same concern for the environment and the quality of the finished product determines the choice of materials. For example, 100% Australian cotton.
Using a natural fibre is important because it's healthy to wear. It's a sustainable resource if it's a natural fibre. Everything that we do is done by hand, so we're not making a cheap product. By using good quality Australian materials, they last longer than a cheaper product. Inks are all made in Australia. We use water-based inks, very environmentally friendly. Fabric printing inks have come a long way in the last 10 to 15 years, in that they've become very, very user-friendly and very environmentally friendly. There are no heavy metals anymore in the colour pigments that we use, which is important to us.
Stringybark started with t-shirts in just two designs: palm cockatoos, drawn by Sandy, and magpies, drawn by James.
The lady next door used to feed magpies, and he photographed the magpies visiting her over a period of weeks and developed drawings from those shots. And I think we just started off with the magpie because it's a very graphic bird. The palm cockatoo is probably a bit vaguer. It's just that it's a very strong-looking bird. It's got those lovely red spots on its cheeks, and yeah, I just did some drawings of from photographs in bird books, and James worked them into a design.
The type of design that we're doing, basically you need your artwork to be fairly bold You can't print on fabric as small as, say, you can print on paper, so your lines have to be a little thicker.
Basically, you have to draw with very bold lines. Like the best contrasts to work with are the most extreme. I found that quite difficult to get used to, and I still have trouble with it sometimes because I don't draw like that. James is the one who has the real graphic eye and who will take a drawing of mine and make the lines, rub out a few tones and say, there, that's going to work.
The technology of screen printing and the economics of a small business also affect the use of colour.
Unless you're printing a fairly small area on fabric, you can't do a 4-colour dot separation, so you can't print a full colour image like a photograph unless you've got quite a small area to print, or you've got extremely good control, which doesn't really work on fabric. With the technique that we're using, you can print as many colours as you want. For each colour, you use a new stencil in a new screen. Because we're doing everything by hand, means each colour we add adds to the time it takes to finish that particular print. So in our situation, colour is important. We don't have a lot of single colour designs, but we try not to use more than 3 colours if we can, because it simply becomes uneconomic. It takes too long to produce something. So that's a design constraint, I guess, that we've imposed upon ourselves, to keep the number of colours limited.
As well as working with their own designs, James and Sandy adapt the designs of Aboriginal artist Minnie Heath, managing to combine cultural sensitivity with some mild differences of opinion over the use of Stringybark's in-your-face choice of colours.
I'm more, I don't know, tuned to earth and ochre colours. That's my more preference. It's more traditional colours. I prefer the traditional colours. It's like the emu with the tracks. That actual design I designed as a sign for Taronga Park Zoo. James liked it and felt, well, using those different colours, the brighter colours, it just changes the image and design. Depends what you're doing and what it's for. It's not my kind of colour that's striking, but it's, you know, I'd like to see it in ochres. It would change the whole design again.
Minnie is paid a royalty on every garment that is sold that has his design on it. One of the important things about that arrangement is that we have a contract, which is, you know, a formal document. There's a beginning of the contract and an end of the contract, and Minnie still owns the work.
Minnie linked up with Stringybark through a kindred feeling about the environment and the appropriate use of his images.
I was doing a workshop or a talk, lecture at the university on Aboriginal culture, heritage, art. So, and James happened to be there, and got chatting away and sort of went from there. I've had lots of people, companies, organisations approach me about my art and designs that would mass produce in a big way. But I kind of felt with James, he's sensitive to environmental issues. I've got faith and trust in him, so that's why, like with my designs, and he's not doing it in a big commercial sense. So he's selective about where he puts his products or where they're going to.
At first, James and Sandy took their limited range of T-shirts to weekend community markets. Gradually they increased the range, moving into baggy pants, children's wear, babies' wear and underwear. And they moved from markets to specialist retailers.
The retailers that are interested in Stringybark tend to either have an environmental theme or a handmade Australian theme. So, for example, all the wilderness shops which exist in most of Australia's capital cities, and for example the Australian Geographic shops chain, they all stock Stringybark graphic designs because they've got a very strong environmental eco theme. People do like Stringybark. They have a very strong reaction to it. They either really love it or it's just a bit over the top of them, a bit too much. I guess what we've had to come to terms with is how we go about producing a fairly bulky, large format print with very limited resources. That's the biggest problem that we've had, and you can do it on your kitchen floor, but after a certain number of times you get sick of doing it on your kitchen floor. When we were financial enough, we actually bought a large format carousel, which meant that the screens actually rotated round in a circle, and we brought each colour screen down onto the printed piece. And we used that for several years, and then a couple of years ago we actually installed these tables in the big workshop. So I guess in terms of growing and problem solving and figuring out how to do things, we've started with the most accessible, least expensive methods first, which we could do, and we've gradually used more technology and more equipment as we've been able to do that financially.
So with Stringybark's current technology, let's follow the design and production process in detail.
Some things you need to take photographs and then do lots of drawings. Other things you can look at a lot of the imagery that's just around and do drawings from that. You then have to condense your drawing or simplify it from, say, a sketch in pencil into a black and white image, a line drawing that's suitable for reproduction in a screen printing sense. You might have 5 drawings or you might have 10, and you photocopy a few of them and put them onto a page and scatter them over the page and do a configuration that you like as a design and see if they work. And some of the drawings won't necessarily work that well together, so you filter them out. You discard the ones that don't seem to link well with the others. Also, in the way that we print, because we're printing meterage, we have a repeat line in our design, so the top of the design has to fit hand in glove with the bottom of the design, so that when these prints are joined together, they appear seamless and join in with each other.
We can't follow the cows through to completion. They haven't happened yet. But we can continue with the process with other designs. Screen printing involves a screen, a mesh frame coated with sensitive emulsion. The design elements are reproduced with a bromide camera as what's called a positive, black images on clear film. For its all-over designs, Stringybark uses multiple positives. The pattern required for each colour in the design is attached to a sheet of acetate. Each sheet, in effect a new large positive, is carefully positioned over an emulsified screen, which is then exposed to light.
To make a positive in screen printing, you need to have the image in black on clear film so that the light can pass through the clear film and harden your emulsion, light-sensitive emulsion on the screen. But where your image is, the black blocks the light, blocks the ultraviolet light. The emulsion behind that image remains unsensitized by the light and will wash out with water, and you end up with a stencil with the image that you want in it.
When the stencil is fitted to the printing frame, the ink can be pressed through the mesh where the emulsion washed away. Correct registration of the all-over print on Stringybark's long rolls of fabric is maintained by adjustable chocks along the sides of the tables. The technique allows designs to be reproduced over and over from the same stencil.
A stencil has got a lot of life, but still a limited life. General consensus is 3,000 to 5,000 prints with each screen. Like after a year or a year and a half, it tends to get a bit rough, and you might get a bit many holes in it. You might start to lose the cleanness of the edge. So then we would strip that screen of its emulsion until it was all clear mesh again, and put some fresh emulsion on and use that positive again. We're in a funny situation where we're using a water-based ink that we can wash out of the screens with water, and yet once we cure it, it's fast on the fabric. And the way you do that is you treat it with heat. So we have a large conveyor belt that goes through a big gas oven. We roll the printed yardage up from the tables because it's already touch dry at that time. And then we put that roll on the conveyor belt, and it just rolls slowly through the oven. And it heats up to about 150 degrees, and it's inside the tunnel for approximately 3 minutes. And that cures it and sets the ink in the fabric, so that no matter how much water you apply, you can't wash it out. But there are lots of other ways of doing it. You can use a hair or an iron, and I used to iron every one, which is fine, works really well. And but obviously you can do it for 1 or you can do it for 10, but if you've got to do it for 50, it gets a bit boring after a while. And if you've got to do it for 250, it's...
Layers of the printed fabric are then laid out, perhaps 20 to 100 layers deep. Then marked up with the pattern of the particular clothing item and cut. Ready to send out to home-based sewers who make up the garments and return them to Stringybark for storage and distribution.
This is a very sort of small business in terms of clothes manufacturing. We tend to make 20 of one thing, or 50 or 100. 100 is a lot, whereas larger clothing factories would do 10,000 of one item at a time.
The patterns tend to be basic.
The fashion industry and Stringybark have a little bit to do with each other, but not a lot. A t-shirt is a t-shirt, and it's a t-shirt. And fashions do change in t-shirts, but they don't change every season. Really, it's the design, it's the surface design and the print that makes Stringybark. People are buying Stringybark because of the print. Sometimes every t-shirt is exactly the same for practical purposes. There are some situations though where we're doing a colour blend, where we put, say, 3 colours in the one screen, and we get this rainbow type of effect. And in that case, no 2 prints are ever the same. I mean, they look generally the same, but if you have a good look at them, you can see, anyone can see that they're a bit different, because every time you push the ink backwards and forwards, it's actually changing its position. We would generally try to have 4 new designs a year. There have been designs that we don't do anymore because they haven't sold enough to justify keeping on doing them. And there are designs that we've done that we don't do anymore just because we think it's time for a change. For anyone who makes clothes using fabric, wastage is always there. So obviously you place your pattern pieces as close together in the best way you can to minimise the wastage that you get. What we do with our offcuts is we have an arrangement with the Smith family and pick up all our bagged scrap, and they shred it and make pillow stuffing and felt and blankets and things like that. We have the cardboard rolls that go inside the rolls of material. We have quite a lot of those. Sometimes they go to preschools and kindergartens to be painted, and people use them as didgeridoos and so on. Sometimes they go to the cardboard recycling centre, so it all gets reused, and we're quite happy about that.
Apart from Sandy and James, Stringybark has 2 full-time employees. Travis, who's responsible for most of the physical printing, and Vanessa, whose responsibilities include keeping track of orders and noting production requirements. Photography is done at a professional studio in Newcastle, and there are usually 4 people sewing in their own home. Additional part-time staff are taken on during the peak production months of September to December, the lead up to Christmas and summer. Health and safety considerations are vital. Warming up properly reduces the risk of injury. One of the benefits of moving to the long tables from the carousel was to eliminate the repetitive lifting of screens, not to mention the risk of being collected by a rotating frame. The success of Stringybark comes from original designs adapted with flair and cultural sensitivity to the technical requirements of screen printing technology, the right designs for the right technology, underpinned always by a passion for the environment.